Could Joe Biden cause a nuclear war? Hey everyone, Meet Kevin here. So there are few things scarier than a nuclear war, especially since a nuclear explosion on a battlefield in one place could send radioactive fallout to Europe or even our homes with dangerous and cancerous levels of radiation. And a piece by The Economist this weekend didn't make me any happier about this. Now, this is not a slam on Joe Biden. It's a critical look at the crisis of Putin and the burden that Putin is putting on the rest of the world, the United States, and of course, our president. Now first, it's worth noting that the world has generally agreed to limit the growth of nuclear weapons. This is done through the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty that was first signed in 1970 and extended indefinitely in 1995. It declares that there are 5 nuclear states, the US, UK, Russia, France, and China, and then others who have essentially become nuclear states by having weapons and testing them, like India, Pakistan, North Korea, and Israel, who are, again, openly testing weapons. However, Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine has upset the balance of just these countries focusing on nuclear weapons. See, not only does Putin regularly threaten NATO and the United States and Ukraine with nuclear action to sort of leverage negotiating clout, he ends up succeeding by using these threats in limiting U.S. action, and by succeeding using nuclear threats, Putin really upsets the nuclear balance throughout the world. For example, when the United States wanted to send air support to Ukraine by providing them with Polish-made MiG-29 fighter jets, Putin lashed out, threatened nuclear action. What did the United States under President Biden do? It backtracked, and did not provide jets. When Biden suggested sending missiles or missile defenses to the war frontier in eastern Ukraine with the power to strike deep into Russia, Biden gave up as soon as Putin freaked out and said this would be the beginning of nuclear war, providing Ukraine with weapons that could strike deep within Russia. Now, Biden will only provide missiles if Ukraine promises to use them defensively. Now, many are suggesting that this makes Biden weak, that if Trump were president, we'd have a much stronger posture and we'd stand up to Russia more. Maybe. But then the question is, well, would Putin have invaded in the first place? Or if Putin did invade and a stronger counter posture attacked Putin back, like maybe a stronger personality like Trump attacked Putin back, could that literally just push us into an immediate nuclear conflict? Nobody will ever know what a stronger posture against Putin would have ended up leading to, because these are, of course, just hypotheticals. But let's consider the danger that we have right now of Putin's nuclear threats. Number one, Putin is upsetting the nuclear world order. The more he saber rattles with nukes, and the more he actually gets concessions because he's saber rattling with nukes, the more he encourages two things, both of which are bad. Number one, as he essentially encourages non-armed nuclear countries to pick up arms. Consider South Korea and Japan, who rely on defense from the United States. They may no longer trust the United States' commitment if they see weakness by the United States in Ukraine. Instead, they might consider to just add their own nuclear arsenals and become their own powers following Putin's incursion. This means more countries with nukes, which is not good for nuclear non-proliferation. In fact, that is literally the opposite. It is nuclear proliferation, or the adding of nuclear weapons. But this isn't just bad for those countries without arms who might decide to pick them up. It's also bad for those who have arms, or the capabilities of producing arms. Consider the fact that Iran has now enriched 20 times as much nuclear and weapons-grade uranium, and they have enough now to make their first bomb from when they first agreed under the Obama administration not to enrich uranium to the levels of being able to create a bomb. North Korea has plenty of warheads, Pakistan is adding warheads, and China is modernizing and expanding its nuclear forces, which also then begs the question of Taiwanese threats and what's going to happen between China and Taiwan. Can China just invade Taiwan, claiming that, well, it's basically Chinese already anyway, and if anybody has anything to say about it, well, we've got nukes, because after all, that negotiation style worked for Putin, so why would it not work for China? See, Putin has weakened non-proliferation worldwide, and it is dangerous and sad. One battlefield nuke used by Putin in a conventional battle could ultimately lead to a nuclear retaliation at city levels by other countries or even NATO, depending on, of course, what kind of fallout there is, but still bad precedents across the board. Consider also then the fact that Saudi Arabia and Turkey could easily join expanded nuclear ambitions, and all of a sudden the world is a much more nuclear place and a much more dangerous place with a lot of very dangerous saber rattling. We could have the style of a global Cold War, like what we had between the United States and the Soviet Union. Especially since someone like Putin, who in 1994 agreed via the Budapest Memorandum on Security Assurances not to even use force against Ukraine, but then flagrantly violated that anyway when he illegally annexed Crimea, and then of course when he invaded in 2022, in total counter to these agreements made. It shows that there's little downside to making an agreement and then just not following it if the world isn't actually going to respond. But of course, how do we move forward now? Now, before we move forward and get to the conclusion as to whether or not we think Biden could cause nuclear war, let's give a quick shout out to our sponsor for today's video. But first, I want to thank today's sponsor, Upstart. We've talked about them so many times on the channel before, and I feel honored and blessed that they are a sponsor, because now you can say goodbye to high-interest credit card debt. That is one of the first ways towards financial freedom. But thankfully, our sponsor, Upstart, has a solution. Upstart-powered personal loans can help you pay down high-interest rate debt, all online, with simple and easy-to-understand payment terms. Upstart has already helped 1.8 million customers pay off credit cards, consolidate high interest rate debt, or fund personal expenses. Once you get your loan, Upstart lets you pay it back in one fixed monthly payment with a clear payoff date. Upstart knows you're more than just a credit score and looks at other factors like income, employment, and other information provided in your loan application to find you smarter rates for your loan. You can check your rate in minutes for loans between $1,000 and $50,000 without even impacting your credit score. And you can even receive funds as fast as 1 business day after accepting your loan. So don't wait. Go check your rate today at upstart.com/Kevin. That's upstart.com/Kevin to check your rate today. Don't forget to use our URL to let them know that we sent you. Because if Ukraine defeats Putin, Putin could lash out with nuclear weapons. If Ukraine doesn't defeat Putin, the war could drag on, leading to more of a global famine, especially in developing countries like Africa and the Middle East, like Egypt, countries who rely on grain exports from Ukraine and Russia. And if Putin doesn't lose, a precedent of using nuclear weapons or threatening to use them has now been set. Therefore, Putin's war is a lose-lose for nuclear weapons and makes nuclear conflict much more likely in the future. So, could Joe Biden cause a nuclear war? Maybe not directly, but without properly ending the Russian threat and standing up for nuclear non-proliferation, he might plant the seeds for nuclear war in the future.